Good afternoon, good evening. The Authors Guild Foundation welcomes you to a discussion on an intriguing topic, serialized fiction. We're excited to have on this panel leadership from two of the most popular platforms, Substack and Kindle Vella, as well as three wonderful authors who can speak to their own experiences. I'd just like to mention a couple things. 2 weeks ago, we held a half-hour webinar on how to use Substack for newsletters. So you can please check out that video if you're interested. It's on our website. And if you're a member of the Authors Guild, there was an informative article on fiction apps and serialization in the spring 2022 issue of our quarterly bulletin, which is available on our website. You can turn on closed captions by clicking the live transcript button below, and you can please use the Q&A box to submit questions for our panelists. Thanks to everyone who submitted questions in advance, and we'll leave some time later in the hour for Q&A. And now I would like to thank Mary Bly for organizing this panel. Mary is a Shakespeare professor and chair of English at Fordham University, as well as a New York Times best-selling author of historical romance written as Eloisa James. Earlier this year, she launched the story on Kindle Vella, which reached #3 on the Top Faves leaderboard with over 20,000 likes. She also serves on the Authors Guild Council. Mary Bly, thank you and welcome everyone.
Thank you, everybody, for coming, and thank you to my panel. So let me just give you an example of how we're going to start. I'm going to introduce the panel as a whole. We'll start with a few questions for each panelist, and then we'll go to the queries submitted by the audience, and then we'll go to the Q&A. Since these bios are very brief, I want to add that between the authors represented here, we cover traditional and indie publishing, genres from Gothic novel to memoir, literary fiction, queer and state romance. And I also want to add that we really hope that Salman Rushdie would join us as one of the foremost serialized novels on Substack, and we all wish him well. So as we said, my name is Mary Bly, and I went on to Vella. I think the thing that I want to emphasize here is that after writing 30 novels, I've been published since 2000, writing a serialized story jump-started creative excitement for me, and it led me to think of this webinar because I think that no matter where you are in your career, serialization can pose a rewarding creative challenge. So going ahead, Sophia Efthimiatou is the head of writer recruiting at Substack. She has worked as a literary agent, editor, and arts administrator. She's originally from Athens, Greece, and spent the last 20 years living and working in New York City. Elle Griffin is writing a utopian novel and extremely popular Substack newsletter, Imagining a More Beautiful Future, which is called The Novelist, I think, not Novelist. She published her first novel, Obscurity, via Substack in 2021 and debuted her second book, Oblivion, on the platform in 2022. Virginia Milner is a senior manager for Kindle Direct Publishing at Amazon, where she leads the Kindle Vella product, business, and marketing teams. She's the daughter of two author parents and a San Francisco native. She now lives in Seattle with her husband, her son, and her little dog, Lola. Erica Ridley is a New York Times bestselling author of witty, feel-good historical romance novels. She debuted A Twisted Fairy Story on Amazon Vella in spring 2022. And we all owe her a shout out because she barely escaped the Florida hurricane and has just made it to Costa Rica, to her home, in order to join us. So I'm going to start just with a few sentences on serialization, because I know there are people here who have never even considered the idea of serialized fiction. And the English professor in me would like to point out that, of course, serialization is one of the most popular ways by which readers have received stories for millennia. Dickens is the obvious example, with his novels read by huge numbers in weekly, in monthly, and then in the final form. So he serialized them in all those forms and then published them. A contemporary example is the Chinese reading audience. There are 330 million online serialized readers in China. It has grown by 20% annually since 2012, and that market is now $1.3 billion. So this is not just a matter of, oh, how lovely it is that Dickens wrote it. It's actually a matter of major marketing power today. So we're going to begin with the basics of both platforms, which is important because they reach readers in different ways. And then I'm asking also, can you give us some tips on enrolling and publishing? So Sophia, first with Substack, can you begin by introducing Substack, including a specific question submitted, which is how a reader picks up a novel in the middle if they discover a new novelist on Substack?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for this introduction, and thank you for inviting me and having all of us here. So Substack is a publishing platform. It's known as a newsletter platform. We use the term newsletter because it's the easiest word we could come up with to capture what we're doing here. Writers can start a Substack, publish pretty much anything they want on it. Not just fiction or serialization. They should see it as their playground, a place where they can put all their thinking, all their writing, and connect directly with their audience in one place. Every post that they publish arrives by email, or if their readers have the Substack app, as a post on the app where it works as an inbox. And then automatically it's published on their Substack, where the entire archive lives. And Elle will probably showcase her own Substack, so because it's harder to describe than it is to see it. Everything belongs to the writer on a Substack. The copyright is the writer's, everything. The email list is the writer's. The financial relationship with the subscriber is the writer's, and the writer keeps 90% of the subscription revenue. Substack charges 10% fee on every dollar subscription. So that's pretty much the simple way of describing what a Substack is. Not only you can publish text, you can publish audio content, video content, a combination thereof. So it's all kind of in one and combines formats. Starting a Substack is very simple. You can just go to Substack and start a Substack the same way that you would start an Instagram account or a Twitter account, and start publishing and start collecting your subscribers and your readers in one place. Does that give a good introduction of what it is?
I think that's great. Can I just ask a specific question, how a reader would catch up on a novel if discovered halfway through?
Yeah. So the simplest way to do it is you can link to previous posts with every post that you publish. Basically, as a writer, you can link to just the previous chapter, the previous post, or to the beginning. And as I said, the entire content lives on your archive. So readers can just go and read it, consume it there.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so turning to Vella, I keep calling it Vela, but I believe it probably comes from novella, so it's Vella. Virginia, will you introduce us to Vella? And can you also answer a specific question regarding exclusivity and authors' rights for the publication of the book afterwards, as well as TV and film rights, considering Amazon is part of the Vella universe?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again for having me. It's exciting to be here and to talk about. We do pronounce it Vella, but yeah, so here to talk about Kindle Vella. So for those who aren't familiar, Kindle Vella is a new reading and writing experience that we launched last summer in 2021. And essentially at its core, it is a way to read serial stories in the Kindle app. And there's also a web reading experience as well. All of the content is published through KDP, so by indie authors. And we have a whole new publishing experience that allows you as authors to publish serially one chapter or episode, we call them, at a time. And then the content becomes directly available to readers in the Kindle app or on the web. Some things that kind of we've added to make the experience more unique is ways to interact as the author with your readers. So at the end of each episode, for example, as an author, you have the ability to leave an author's note. So to share a little bit more insight into your inspiration about that specific episode, or tease what's coming up next in the plot. And readers have the ability to vote on their favorite stories. So I think at the beginning of the meeting, Johnny mentioned that Eloisa's story, The Seduction, was a top faved story. So we have a fave leaderboard with the most favorited stories to help readers discover stories that other readers have really loved and chosen to vote for as their favorite story. To address the kind of specific question around rights, when you publish a story on Kindle Vella, you do retain the rights to it. It is not exclusive. You can publish the story elsewhere, and you retain the audio and the video rights to that as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to turn now to the authors. I'm going to ask that we just really briefly describe your experience with the particular platform. So I'll start with myself. I wrote The Seduction season 1 and 2 for Amazon. So I'm going to show my screen here. So you can see it. Here is The Seduction. It's a historical romance. You can see that my picture is not at all historical. That's because you have to buy the rights for a picture, but I think she's very enticing. You can see season 1 and season 2. You can see how it works here. It ended up with a top fave and 22,000 likes. And you can see how it says, continue here, 2, 3, and the episodes list, or I can link to any given chapter that I want if I'm directing readers. So I put the author's notes and thought they were a lot of fun, and I directed readers to my Facebook group, which has some thousands of readers in it. This led to really fascinating discussions about readers sort of criticize and hypothesize what was going to come next. So in season 2, I decided to lean much more heavily on cliffhangers. The crucial thing I felt is that intervention of the reader and the author is so much closer in this kind of fiction than it is in novels, which is what I'd written before. So I used that to try to figure out what the readers want. That said, I started always with the full draft, and then I rewrote it as I went. And I would suggest, just as a piece of practical advice, you be very careful where you cut off an episode, because the reader is going to buy tokens or pay for the next episode. And if you don't leave a question or some kind of curiosity in their mind, they're not going to do it. And so I would genuinely say it's changed my writing process for the better. I'm writing a novel now as well. So Elle, would you go next?
Yes, so I'm going to share my screen too, just to make it easier. So here's my Substack. I'm writing a utopian novel and also a nonfiction newsletter that is imagining a more beautiful future. So I'm kind of doing my research for the book live in non-fiction format at the same time that I'm publishing chapters. You can see on Substack, you can have blurbs here that other people are recommending your Substack. Once you go in, here's how my Substack's laid out. I have my first post pinned that just explains how I'm doing it. I did publish my first book this way, so here's Obscurity. If I can click on it, there we go. And you can see here's all the chapters. So anybody coming in at the middle can just say they got this chapter, then it would say we last read the 39th chapter. You can start with the prologue if you'd like, get to the chapter, all that sort of thing. So for Oblivion, here was my prologue. I just debuted it last week. You can do pictures. You can also, and this is really cool, I do an author commentary section at the bottom, and I actually have this paywalled, so anybody can read my chapter for free, but you can only see the author commentary if you're a paid subscriber. I also have, because it's multimedia, my next chapter, I did a collab with a musician who actually wrote a musical score for the chapter. And so there's music here that accompanies the chapter. And if people do want to pay, you can just click subscribe, and this is what you get. In my case, all of my content is free, but if you'd like to pay $10 monthly or $50 annually, then you get access to author commentary and you can comment on chapters. Or if you buy my collector tier, which is $200, you get the hardcover copy when it's done. So this is my last book that I serialized via Substack, and I just printed this out for my collector subscribers last month. So that's a walkthrough of Substack.
Thank you. Let's see, got to stop the share there.
Working on it.
It's up at the top.
There we go.
Erica?
Yeah, so I jumped into Vella on Mary's invitation. We created intertwined fairy tale stories set in the Regency world. So that was a lot of fun. We were both usually writing historical romance novels, so we're familiar with that. And she had so much fun writing her first season that I was really intrigued to start. And I do tend naturally to try and end every scene on maybe not as hard of a cliffhanger as I tried to do with the serial format, but with some kind of hook. So I did lean more into that. One thing I kind of learned as I went on that I wish I would have started from chapter 1 is there's like a preview. You can see the first couple of paragraphs. So definitely start with a strong hook, like nothing boring there at the beginning, because you want to get the people to want to read more. I really enjoyed in Vella, not just the author's notes, but also the ability to put in polls. So sometimes they would be funny or silly, you know, it can range from what do you think is going to happen next to, you know, what twisted fairy tale would you like to see next, or any kind of thing that you want to do. I definitely would recommend writing as much in advance as you feel comfortable with, unless you are that kind of person who really wants to write it along with your readers. I mean, if that's what's fun for you, go for it, I guess. But for me, I loved being able to schedule in advance. It made me feel a little bit more confident with what I was doing. And I also used the author comment sections to invite readers to either go to visit me on other social media or to try my other series. Or just to leave comments and feedback. And so it was a lot more interactive and very fun in that way.
Great, thank you. I just have to add that I've been reading a lot of Dickens scholarship, and I just read an article that suggested that Dickens actually died because he died kind of young. He died because of the pressures of serialization. So be careful what you get into. All right. I have a question for everyone here, which is about genres. What do you think as an author or as a leader of the platform is working best? Are there genres that aren't selling? Specifically, people were asking about children's literature, but they asked about all kinds of things from genre fiction, horror to literary fiction. Erica, let's go back and start with you again.
I would, as an author, I don't have hard data from any of the platforms, obviously, but from what I see and from what I hear, I think genre fiction is definitely leading, with romance having an outsized share of that, particularly on Vella, I would say, but others may have more info.
Virginia, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're definitely seeing a lot of popularity around romance, both from writers publishing stories and readers there is demand for it, for sure. So right now I would say the field is more competitive in romance on Kindle Vella, but I think that means as an author, it's a great time to lead the way with another genre, and we are with different genres. And we've seen this recently over the summer. There was a cozy mystery called Murder, Mayhem, and Macaroons by Kim Titus that really rose in popularity and broke through. Similarly, and there was a question about kind of children's literature, a YA story that was romance and fantasy called Covert Hearts by Maggie Evans that really stands out in terms of breaking out as a hit. So I think while, you know, romance is popular, different genres are starting to break through, and there's a lot of opportunity as an author to share a story, you know, from any genre, really.
Yeah, if I could, I'll just clarify that when you're on the Vella homepage, you can choose by genre, which means that if people are interested in cozy mystery, they can go right there. Okay, Elle, what do you find on Substack?
Well, on Substack, I would say that fiction is pretty new. So there's a lot of people doing a lot of different things, but I would say that, you know, my first book was literary, and I don't think that's the way to go for Substack. I had actually written that intentionally to traditionally publish it, and only after I had written it, decided to serialize it on Substack. For my current book, I'm writing a fantasy novel, and all of the chapters are less than 3 minutes long to read. You could start at any point, and there's a cliffhanger at the end of every single chapter. So I'm specifically building it for the serialization format. But I think that like all things with serialization, the idea is to keep people going. So, you know, fantasy, sci-fi, romance, those are always great genres for that kind of thing of keeping somebody interested for the long haul.
Thank you. Sophia?
Yes, I would say there are two things on that. First of all, a Substack, I'm having trouble thinking of it in terms of genre, because again, a writer starting a Substack, I would recommend that they see it as a space where they don't just do one thing. So this is an ongoing, the subscription model is an ongoing model, right? You're experiencing exponential financial growth. Your subscribers go up over time forever, for as long as you're doing it. So you can serialize a book, but you should also, and it doesn't matter what you do, they're subscribing to you, they're subscribing to your mind and consciousness. You can have your community. And that's one thing I didn't bring up, or maybe you didn't highlight, but perhaps you can next time you share. There's a community element to it. So under each chapter, under each post, there are comments, there are likes, people engage with the content and the writer directly. So we've seen a couple of examples that have been extremely successful. I'm going to share my screen and show you. Someone serialized Dracula, the classic novel, to enormous success. They do it every year. This is what it looks like. It's called Dracula Daily, and I can show you in the back end. They're not charging for it. Oh, there we go. So basically every time it starts, because he's following the dates of the novel. So it starts May 3rd and it ends sometime in November. I did it last year. That has garnered 220,000 subscribers. I'm going to stop sharing, but basically this is what it looks like. You're reading Dracula over email. It arrives, and that worked extremely well. Why? Because what Elle said, with serialization, frequency and consistency are key. And Dracula worked very well because some of these entries are just a paragraph long. Some of them are longer. It's an epistolary novel, as you probably know. So people can binge on it over the weekend if they didn't catch up with it over the week. That's what I would recommend. I did it as a reader last year. It was fantastic. The novel was with me for 6 months. I have the physical book in my library. I loved reading it this way. But as I said, you can do parallel to that. You can have a book club in your Substack. You can have a discussion. You can do whatever you want. In terms of young adult, I don't have many examples on Substack with that. I would say the only thing is, there in terms of your readers and your audience, I don't know how many people under the age of 18 would have an email access without their parents' approval and all of that. So that's my only kind of caveat, because it arrives by email. So,
okay, good point. Okay, let's move to a question. How do we make these serializations a success? So say I've got a book and I'm going to serialize it. How do I make it a success? And what happens if an author doesn't have a large following? But what if they do have a large following? How do they get them to go to these new places? So I'll start very briefly and say, I did need to mobilize my audience. I think there wasn't very much historical romance on there that I saw when I came in, which meant that I had to figure out ways to make serialization appealing and to constantly draw people in, right? So they would come over and check it out. And so I used all the weapons I have, which are the same weapons you have for publishing, right? My newsletter, Instagram, TikTok, etc. I would say that the most successful was Facebook. The problem with Facebook and Amazon Vella was that it's not available internationally yet. And so you do end up dealing with peevish readers. There's no getting around that. So that was a bit of a problem. But the other main thing I did was advertising. Because I could see that my main readers were coming from Facebook, they weren't following as much from Instagram, and they weren't following at all from TikTok, from mine anyway. I then ran ads on on Amazon, and I could track very closely what the turnover was with that and make sure that, you know, the amount of advertising I was doing was actually paying itself back in the royalties. Because on the back end, you can see how many people open a paid episode, how many people read the first 3 are free, how many read the free ones, how many read the paid ones, how many like it. You have an abundance of information, which is quite helpful and not something you get if you're actually publishing a traditional novel. Obviously, if someone picks it up in Costco, that's the last you see of them. Okay, Erica, do you want to add something? Because you were also writing historical romance there.
Yeah, I would just agree that you have the same tools that you would use to promote anything else that you write. I wouldn't think of it too much as something completely different. You don't have to learn all new promotional skills in order to publish in a serial format. So I would just reiterate, the one thing I would add is cross-promotion. Mary and I did some cross-promoting since our stories were linked. We mentioned each other, not just in our newsletters and in our Facebook groups, but in our actual posts. We would occasionally do shout outs to each other. And if there's someone obviously that's closely connected, you don't have to be writing an interconnected story, but if there's another author whose audience would enjoy your work as well, you can consider reaching out to them and kind of utilizing both of your audiences to enhance the growth for each of you.
I think we would do it slightly different next time because we didn't understand. We ended up both publishing on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I think we could have done like every day. So you get an Eloise or Erica story every single day, because the readers started really getting into it. And like, oh, I read it on the subway. I read it during my commute, whatever. And so my characters walked down to Erica's stories and hers walked down to mine. And that was fun. People love tracking those things. So yeah, I think also it reduced the stress. Little to have 2 of you. Okay, so Elle, you're a newer author. What was your experience and how did you grow your newsletter and your novels?
Well, on Substack, it kind of works a lot like social media because you can comment on each other's Substacks. And when you do, you can click on that person's name and then see all the Substacks they follow and all the ones they like. So there's this kind of network effect where you're getting to know each other through the comment section, and then you like this one person, so then you follow all the Substack that they follow. And Substack also has a couple features like recommendations where anybody that you can recommend other Substacks that you like. And then like I'm recommending 5 Substacks right now. If somebody subscribes to my Substack, it will say, Elle likes these 5 Substacks. Would you like to subscribe to them too? And then instant subscribe. So that has gone gangbusters. It's insane how that has exponentially affected growth. And then the other thing they have is referrals now, where paid subscribers can refer your newsletter and give like a free 1 month trial to people. And so that increases, you basically get your subscribers to promote you. So there's this network effect, and then there's also this like exponential growth effect just by being part of the network, which is really amazing. When I started with Substack 1 year ago, I had 1,700 newsletter subscribers, and now I have 6,200, and that's just from 1 year of just natural growth. So it really is amazing how you can just kind of build an audience there for your work. And the nice thing is I have direct access to all of them. I have all of their email addresses. Not only can I send a post weekly, but I can also like email everybody that is my most engaged reader, or email everybody that is just subscribed at the collector tier. So there's a lot of ways that you can be in touch with your community, which is really awesome.
So let me just ask a question that occurs to me. Do you get to take that list with you when you leave?
I can download that list whenever I want and leave Substack if I'd like, which is amazing.
Great. Okay, Virginia and Sophia, would you like to add anything to this question of how an author grows on your platforms? Sophia, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. Yes, so of course we encourage writers who launch to get the word out, use their social media networks to promote their Substacks, and that can be an ongoing process. Show people what you're doing on your Substack. Why? Because the whole point is to get your audience to Substack where you can control that relationship and own it completely, so that you don't depend on algorithms, you don't depend on ad revenue that other platforms charge. You just want to get it in one place where you own the email list, as Elle said, and also how you communicate with your readers, right, directly. So the best way to do it is funnel as much as possible, you know, the audience that you've built in other platforms. I use quotes because it's not really, it belongs to Twitter, it belongs to Instagram, it belongs to the other platform, it doesn't belong to you. But here it does. So, but then once you get them in, there's this flywheel kind of effect. First of all, your free subscribers will convert over to paid over time. And as Elle said, you are part of a network. You're part of an ecosystem of writers who are helping other writers grow. We're constantly trying to come up with ways, like the recommendations, creative ways to do that without resorting to methods that other platforms have resorted into. So, the recommendations feature that Elle mentioned now gets on average 45% of the free subscribers for writers, and about 11% of their paid subscribers just come from other writers recommending writers. And we're just constantly coming up with new ways to amplify that effect. So hopefully, you know, you just bring them in, and then your subscribers also become your best promoters. With every email, every post that you send out, as Elle said, you know, you can see the breakdown. You can see how many new paid subscriptions it got you and how many new free subscriptions it got you. People will forward it, they will share it. Your own readers are going to bring more readers to you.
Thank you. Virginia?
Yeah, I mean, I echo a lot of what has kind of already been said in terms of the tips that we give authors for Kindle Vella. I think, you know, publishing regularly, frequently, on a predictable schedule that your readers can incorporate and expect in their daily lives, looking forward to the next story, and publishing in an ongoing way to really continue to build on that readership. So, for example, the marriage auction is one of the very first stories that was published on Kindle Vella. It is still going today. Audrey Carlin, the author, continues to publish episodes multiple times a week. And she has built, you know, she came with some readers, but she has built a readership over the course of a year that just continues building and reading this story. With kind of every new episode that she publishes, those readers get more and more engaged. So we've seen that kind of publishing strategy be really successful. A lot of what you all have already spoken about in terms of just engaging directly with readers, because you're publishing on this frequent basis, that's just that many more times for you to interact and keep your readers engaged, whether it's directly through, you know, an author's note at the end of an episode, or moving that conversation over to social media. You know, we've seen a number of authors kind of start their writing careers on Kindle Vella and grow to great success using these strategies. So Elizabeth Ashe, who writes Elven Heartbound, she started her writing career with Kindle Vella, grew her audience from the ground up, mostly using Facebook, as you were talking about, Mary. And now it's one of our biggest stories. It has 55,000 thumbs up. And a couple of the other authors that I mentioned previously that are some of our standout hit stories were also kind of first-time authors on Kindle Vella. So you definitely don't have to come with an audience. You have the ability to build it. And you know, one of my favorite stories is you know, hearing people who are able to turn this into a full-time job. So they had another job, they started writing their story on Kindle Vella, and were able to quit their kind of quote unquote day job. And I love to hear that, you know, especially from people who had, you know, weren't previously published.
Great. Thank you. Okay, a couple other sort of book-related questions, and we are getting toward the Q&A. I see there's a lot of them there. What are the options for publishing a whole book later? Would a trad publisher be interested? I can say that I have interest from a trad publisher, and I've also sold it abroad, mine, because Vella is not available internationally. But do either one of you want to comment on that?
I actually think it's interesting that a lot of new publishing houses have popped up that specifically cater to serialized fiction. Athon Publishing, for one, works exclusively with Patreon authors who write fantasy and sci-fi. And what they do is it's a different model where instead of like acquiring the rights to the book and then giving the author 15% royalties, a lot of times they'll say, you can keep your Patreon monthly earnings and we'll just help you distribute it. And it's a 50-50 split. And so it happens only after, like, Zogarth is like the most famous one. He makes like $20,000 a month from his Patreon account, but he also publishes it traditionally after, like, in every year, like a new chunk is published as a book. So there's always a way to do it.
I know in terms of Vella that a lot of people have taken them and then published them in Kindle Unlimited or published them with Montlake or other places.
Yeah, I was going to say we've seen a number of our authors publish either kind of the whole story as through KDP as a book, or also, because some of these stories are quite long, dividing them up into seasons and publishing them kind of each book as a season. One fun thing that we've seen is authors who kind of use both together. And so for ongoing stories where they're being published as books, referring readers in the books back to Kindle Vella to read the most current episodes. So if you're reading kind of the seasons in ebook fashion, but you want to stay up to date on the latest episodes, come back to Vella to read, what is the latest in the story there. And we've seen readers respond really well to that kind of flexibility of the format. Sometimes they just want to binge part of the story. Sometimes they just can't wait to find out what happens next and they want to read episode at a time. So it's been interesting to see authors experiment with that flexibility and how readers respond to it.
Yeah, I have to add that this is happening not only on these platforms, because if you are a fan of Ilona Andrews, who's of course #1 New York Times bestseller, they serialize stories on their website, which I go and binge when I'm in a bad mood, and then they publish the book with Kindle, and then I buy that. I always buy that as well. I'm like a Dickens reader here. So here's a question. Erica, did you take reader feedback when you were, how much did you take that into account when you were writing? And did you take more to write future chapters? And are you going to write another one? And will you take account of readers? Like, where do readers come in?
Yeah, so with this first one, I was definitely writing too far ahead to take, because we were publishing 3 times a week. I didn't have time to write a story in one day, or the next episode in one day. So I solicited reader reactions, and some of the interactive questions might be in the format like, what do you think will happen next or whatever, but I wasn't necessarily taking those answers into consideration because I had already written several chapters in my head. I will be writing another serial after the first of the year for Vella. And I already have, kind of like Ella was saying, I will be structuring this specifically serial first this time with kind of a different mindset of how I want to do everything there. And I'm going to be, now that my readers are familiar with the concept, I think it was new for probably most of them. Most of my readers are definitely novel readers and not serial readers. But now that they've had a taste, I think we can have some interesting conversations up front. I'm going to start teasing it in my newsletter like months ahead of time and get kind of feedback from them before I start. Although, again, I will probably write at least several weeks in advance to have those, just that buffer in place. You never know when a hurricane will strike or anything else that can throw you off schedule.
I would think the worst thing you could do would be to desert the readers in a situation. That they get discontent very fast. Elle, are you taking readers into account?
Yes. In fact, I'm designing my utopian novel in kind of an interesting way. I'm doing these writing prompts. So the idea of the novel is it's a utopian novel. So it's a beautiful society. And so I'm doing these prompts like, what does the ideal city look like? and that only my paid subscribers can then respond to an essay about and write their own essays and include links for everybody. And I'll do a roundup post next month about here's the perfect cities edition. Here's what everybody said the perfect cities will look like based on their own essays and their own responses. And then that definitely influences me as I'm writing about this perfect city and how it looks. I'm taking into consideration everything that everybody says and learning from them, because I'm not the expert on what a perfect city looks like, and everybody's going to think about it differently. So it's kind of fun. Like, I'm really excited to get everybody involved in that part of the writing and like doing the research with me.
It's really fascinating. I'm going to welcome Johnny back now, because I see that we've got like 50 questions in the Q&A and 20 minutes to go. So Johnny, do you want to come back and ask some of them?
Hi, thank you. Yes. A lot of questions. Thank you to the audience. So one question, a few questions about the platforms. So Vella is only open to US-based authors right now, correct? And Substack, it doesn't matter where you live. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. It's international.
Yeah, we're just US at the moment.
Are there protections in place to prevent simple copying and pasting and your work getting stolen? Is anything really there to stop people from forwarding emails, or is it just an honor system?
So in terms of trust and safety for the platform, yes, there's an entire team working on that. So especially plagiarism is something that's the kind of thing we will take down. But in terms of forwarding emails, I would say you want people to forward your emails. That's how you're going to grow your list. But the posts, you can lock the posts, like you can determine what is just for paid subscribers, what is just for your free subscribers, what is for your collectors tier, as Elle calls it, or your founding members, the people who want to pay above and beyond for your content. But generally, I wouldn't be, as I said, this is an exponential growth model. It does change people's lives in terms of the money a writer can earn directly from their readership. So, and the way to grow is people forwarding emails. You just see that one email can get you. I've seen emails that have gone viral and have gotten people 260 new paid subscribers, and that's recurring revenue. It's not just a pop, and 1,500 new free subscribers.
Yes, I've seen a lot that say, if this was forwarded to you, please consider subscribing. So that's simple.
Do you want me to answer for Kindle Vella or?
Yes, please.
Oh, sure. So obviously Kindle Vella is slightly different without that email component to it. But when you publish with Kindle Vella, it's publishing through Kindle Direct Publishing. It's publishing an ebook through Kindle. So it has all of the same digital rights management that you would expect kind of from any ebook that's being published through Kindle.
All right. Many people have asked about serializing a previously published book. Is that allowed on these platforms?
So with Kindle Vella, if you have a work that you have finished writing that you think might be a fit for a serialized format, I think that's a great option. As we've been talking about, the writing of and reading of a serialized story is slightly different than reading and writing a full novel. And so we do kind of encourage writers to maybe make some adjustments to add those cliffhangers, add the bridging from one episode to the next to keep readers engaged. We don't recommend taking a previously published book or novel and publishing it on Kindle Vella, just because it may be confusing for readers who have already read it. So that's not something that we encourage.
Okay.
On Substack, you can do whatever you want as long as you it's up to you. It's up to the writer.
Okay. In terms of payments, Are the writers paid monthly, or how does that work?
Sophia, do you want to go first?
Sure. So it's very simple. You start a Substack, you connect a Stripe account. It's kind of like PayPal, and the subscription revenue just rolls straight into your bank account, and that's the net subscription revenue. So Substack has already withheld the fee before it hits your bank account, but that's, yeah, you just I'm not sure, Elle, perhaps you can, how often Stripe releases the funds. I think you can even select the cadence, right?
I think it seems like I get paid once or twice a month, but I'm somewhere around there.
So with Kindle Vella, it's paid monthly, similar to the way royalties through KDP work. The way that the author compensation for Kindle Vella is structured is, and this has been alluded to, but the first 3 episodes of every story are free. And then from there, readers buy tokens and redeem the tokens to unlock subsequent episodes. So authors receive 50% of the money that readers spend on those tokens. And then we also have a monthly bonus that we also award. So the compensation for authors is really made up of those 2 components, the royalties and the bonus, and they're both paid monthly.
Uh-oh, Johnny is gone. Dear, oh dear. All right, just a second. I'm going to take a quick look at the Kindle here. At the questions. What's the payment plan? Okay, how do you market your store on Kindle Vella? Okay, so here's someone. This is for Kindle Vella. Some authors have massive numbers of episodes read and unlocked. Some of these authors are already New York Times bestsellers, but how do successful authors unlock thousands and even 10,000s of reads, likes, follows? That's not quite clear to me. But I will say, as someone who had episodes read and unlocked, I simply drew the readers there. One great thing is that if you do season 1 and season 2, when you start advertising season 2, they're going to go back and read season 1. So they'll go all the way from the beginning. So you're constantly refreshing what happened beforehand. Does that make sense? Yeah. Virginia, did I?
Yeah, I think that's right. And I was trying to scroll and try and find the question. There's so many of them.
No.
But I think, oh, I found it. Here it is. But I think, yeah, it goes back to kind of what I was saying about where authors, especially ones who are starting from scratch as the beginning of their, writing career, have done to build a following and keep that following by publishing regularly, engaging directly with their readers. That's how we've seen folks who are not New York Times bestsellers really have great success.
Right. So Lori's asking on Kindle Vella, where do you invite readers to visit other platforms? Is it the author comment section? I would say yes. Just like Erica said, in the author comment section, I would say a lot of people have something, come visit me on Facebook. And then you might also say, hey, this character is in this other series. So you're pushing them out all the time, to Instagram, to TikTok, wherever. And then a follow-up question here is, who is the audience or subscriber on each platform? What are the demographics of the audiences? So let's start with you, Sophia.
That just depends on the writer, because every writer has their own publication and it's their own audience. And of course, as I said, there's cross-pollination. And an important feature that I forgot to mention is the guest posting. So it's a little bit similar to what you described doing on Vella, but you can invite another writer to write a guest post on your publication, linking to their publication. And but again, so there could be audience overlap there, but there isn't like all of Substack. We have writers from George Saunders to Michael Moore to like different audiences, different demographics for each writer.
But I mean, just to be blunt, there is a difference between your platforms and I think your audiences. I mean, my sense is that Substack has not is not attracting that many romance, for example. I haven't seen a lot of horror there yet.
I think it's because writers don't really know about it.
So
I really
this is where
do.
we are now.
And then, you know, when they come, like they see their peers doing it and then they start doing it. But this is kind of like, it's more, writers learn about this through other writers mostly.
Or our webinar.
Actually,
Or our webinar. Yes.
I actually follow an awesome romance Substack that I think is called Heartbeat. And what they do is they get a bunch of really famous romance novelists to all write a like one episode romance story, like just a meet cute. And so every Friday I get a new meet cute in my inbox, and I love it. It's so good.
Hi there. Sorry about that. My internet had trouble, unfortunately. Thank you for continuing.
Let me just say, Virginia is going to answer the question about the demographics of readers on the Vella platform.
Yeah, so I think, so for Kindle Vella, the potential readership is the potential Kindle readership. So Kindle Vella is in the Kindle app. So, you know, any of the many customers that have the Kindle app are going to be exposed to Kindle Vella and the stories that are published there. Same with kind of on, you know, within Amazon.com. But I think similarly, you know, the audience it varies according to the range of the stories that we have. And so if you kind of look at our story, you know, you will see a lot of romance, as we talked about, but lots of other genres too. And the kind of the readership varies based on kind of those different genres and the stories that they're reading.
Johnny, do you want to take over again?
Sure. So there's a lot of questions about marketing yourself, especially if you are not very established to begin with. What are newer authors doing to get the ball rolling?
I think we've sort of discussed a lot of interesting things. I think I could sum them up as it sounds like the beginning of Instagram in a way, right? You need to share with other authors. You need to advertise your story as much as you can to your community and what are the other communities you can become a part of. You are a good community member to other people and other stories, and that will work in an exponential manner. And you can also get into advertising either on your newsletter or more formal advertising on things like there's various newsletters that people pay for example, that I know Vella authors have gone on and received, you know, a good number of readers for. I think
I want to mention that I think a lot of people get stressed out about the marketing aspect and like, how do I get my start, or I'm just starting. I think on Substack, there are actually a lot of success stories of people that are just starting grassroots with 10 subscribers. That's their mom and their dad and their sisters, and then like scaling from there. Like, it's not all a bunch of New York Times bestselling novelists. Like, I mean, Jimmy Doom, I have to talk about him because he's this awesome fiction writer on Substack, totally just started grassroots like around the same time that I did. And he has more paid subscribers now than Salman Rushdie, and I bet you've never heard of him. But he he publishes a new short fiction every day, flash fiction every day, and he's just developed a following through the network effect of Substack. So I don't think you need to be like, I am a big, great writer, and you have to be that to be a success story. Like, you can totally start from the bottom.
right.
That was my pep talk for the day.
No, that's it. Thank you for that. That's what I do this job. It's like like nothing gives us a greater high than watching writers' dashboards and seeing them earning like high six figures of recurring. Like, you know, they're like, wow, this is like or seven figures. So
I think that's what's so interesting about this this format is kind of regardless of where you publish, it's that you're building that relationship with your readers and you're connecting with them so regularly that it's a really different opportunity to build a huge, like a community, more so than just like even a fan base. And it is really fun to see that happen.
If I could just add, there's an article, some of you are interested in moving. There's an author called Ted Gioia who wrote, who's moving from a traditional published career onto Substack. And he said that instead of getting feedback from one editor, I'm learning from thousands of people, many of them very smart with useful things to say. And so I just want to emphasize again, there's this huge move in terms of the author as some kind of not removed godlike figure who created this story that you walk into, but the readers having this feeling of the person who created it, because it's coming out serialized. They have more of a feeling of who's behind it, even if you don't, ask for feedback. This is an interesting question. I'm just going to jump to Johnny because I think it's essential. When you're putting things on these platforms, and this person would like to include period 60s music, how do you obtain it? What do you do about those pictures on there? How do you make sure that they are somebody owns the copyright, etc.? What about the pictures on Vella that are the little, how do we know that these things are legal, the music and the photographs, etc., that show on the platforms?
For Vella, for Kindle Vella, anything published through Kindle Direct Publishing and Kindle Vella included goes through a content risk management assessment. So we have automated systems that review everything, and people who look at them too, to make sure that no copyright is being infringed.
Yeah, I think I had to upload my license when I bought.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Red-haired woman. Okay, Sophia.
On Substack, the writer this is their publication, so they are responsible for the content that they're putting up. And as I've said, sometimes we have reports on plagiarism, and then of course a member of our team will go in and check it and take action. But we won't check every single thing that's posted. It's the same thing as with every other platform. It's very hard to moderate that, like every image and stuff. However, I will say, I will plug a tool. We've made it very easy. So basically on your editor, which looks kind of like composing a simple email, you can insert an image, and we've made it very easy for you to search for an image free of copyright within the tool and just insert it with a caption and everything ready. I could demonstrate that, but it would take too much time.
And in terms of your own copyright, we received plenty of questions about that. So I asked our legal team. I am not a lawyer, but my understanding is if you want to register with the US Copyright Office, you can register each piece as it goes. You can wait till the end and register the whole thing as a book, or you can use the batch registration, the group collected works registration for numerous online works. There's a time limit and a word count limit on that, but you can register a bunch at a time in order to protect your own stuff fully as you're writing it.
I just have to say, as a member of the Authors Guild board, we have lawyers on staff that you can access for free to check out the contract you sign with Substack or with Vella. So it's a great reason to be a member of the Authors Guild, because access to legal advice without having to pay for it is invaluable, especially if you hit a glitch. So maybe we can have one more question, Johnny?
Yes, some people wanted to know about your day as a writer when you're in the thick of it. How do you handle your day differently when you're writing for serials?
Erica, jump on it.
Well, one of the most fun things that we did while we were writing is Mary and I often wrote together. We would have a Zoom window up, and we would, do sprints with pomodoros and write and just knock the words out and talk to each other. And, if we had like a plotting question, or if we were just giggling to ourselves over something that we just did, it was great and motivating to have someone there in the trenches with you.
I would double that. I mean, I have a lot of trouble writing now if I don't have someone with me, someone to talk to. But I mean, I have a day job, so I can always go off and do. But if you do pomodoros, which is 25-minute writing sprints on Zoom, you will get the pages done. Elle, go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I was just saying that sounds like the dream. I was like, maybe I should start a writing Zoom. Like, I want to write with other writers. That's so cool. That sounds amazing.
I'm, I'm the chair of English at Fordham University. And if you happen to be a Fordham grad, you are welcome to come to our writing sprints on Thursdays at noon. And I have alums come and undergrads, and, we have a bunch of sci-fi writers that sometimes show up, and it can be very inspiring and a lot of fun. So I recommend doing it with your community.
Do you talk while you're writing?
No, we do. You start at 25 minutes, right? So somebody is the timekeeper. Everyone turns their sound and camera off for 25 minutes. And then the timekeeper says, hey, we come back. You come back and everyone turns their camera on. Then you say, what were you writing? Anyone got a question? Or has anyone read anything great lately? And you talk for 5 minutes, because scientifically, you really can concentrate on writing fiction for only 25 minutes and you need a break, or your creativity starts to dwindle. But I find, for example, if I'm writing with Erica, that I can come back and say, my hero has become horribly boring. And she will have encountered that same problem, because we both have a ton of books behind us. And if you have a long career, that's, you are encountering the same characters whom you have to make original. That's the key with genre fiction. They have to be different. So
I love that. That's awesome. You guys are so inspiring.
Yeah, this is inspiring, and I think the talk of potential 5- and 6-figure payouts is also inspiring. So I think we'll end it here. This has been great. Our panelists have given me links and resources to share with everyone in the audience, so you'll get a follow-up email with those. Lots of helpful stuff there. Thank you so much to all our panelists. And if you have any questions for the Authors Guild, please email me at support@authorsguild.org. And with that, we'll say goodnight. Thank you, everyone.
hey, everybody.
Thanks. Good night.
Thank you.